one of the things that Youth in Action has had to learn along the way is, I think for people who studied the program was 10 months. And as Nikki was talking about the informative research, we've had to learn to reduce the length of the program. So from youth coming in for 10 months to making it like now it's as short as 6 months. So that has also allowed the youth who feels like, this is taking forever and we have other things to do. So that has really addressed the decline of dropouts.
I was just going to, because in China you've learned a lot of.
Yeah, I think that the second question about the dropout risk was a very big challenge for us, especially in China. We work with migrant, in-the-country migrant youth, so they move all the time. But that's probably a very big challenge for us. So our solution was that first you need to make your curriculum really flexible. For example, when we work with out-of-school migrant youth, almost all our training sessions happens in the evening after they finish work. Very late, in some communities it's usually like from 8 to 10. And also the design of the curriculum has to be short. You need to cover the main knowledge skills of the targeted transferable skills. You can leave some space for them to practice in the training sessions, but then we combine the youth club activities as a kind of way of experiential learning, and also the way to for the youth to practice the skills they learn through the training. And also we use online platforms as well as social media to both disseminate information, especially our knowledge and information about, related to the skills to the youth, as well as kind of setting a network with the youth. So if they move to other communities or move to other places, we can still track them through this online community, both for us, for the project staff, and also with their peers as well.
Yeah. Great. Anybody have any questions? Yeah. So I am.
I think the question about the assessment of your, how do you assess the competency of the facilitators?
Well, so we have different categories. So we have a spot check tool. And the idea is that this tool is used in the training of trainer workshops and then as a self-assessment tool, and it has different categories. So understanding the content of what the curriculum is all about, but then also all of the key things that a trainer needs to do to deliver what we consider to be quality training. So all of the materials are prepared in advance. There's a lesson plan that's like put together, that you're smiling and you're engaging, which seems pretty like easy to understand, but it's actually for different groups of people. You have to really sort of work on this one thing. Also, being able to make sure that all youth are participating or are involved in the process and respecting sort of their thing. So there's different sort of categories that we have in the assessment tools. I think it's, again, this is something that we've just developed, so seeing how this works in progress. And I know Sarah Press for the Youth in Action program also has key specific things, like actions that you're supposed to do. So when you're going through and preparing for it, or after a training, you can say, I did this, oh no, I didn't really do this, or this is something I could improve on, to try and, for trainers to improve, and then you can also do evaluation, sitting in the class and seeing how it gets done. I think that this is an area that we need to, if we're developing a common approach for the program, that we need to look at.
Is that tool and there's checklist something you can share?
Yes, definitely. And I can share the Youth in Action. I mean, they're kind of built off of each other, but I can share. And here is stop, but but I won't stop.
So one tiny question. I hope it's tiny. I noticed difference in terminology between maybe Youth in Action and skills to succeed, and between transferable skills and employability skills. Can you explain the nuance there for all of us? Why one and not the other?
Why transferable skills
versus employability skills? Why does, for example, Skills to Succeed use employability skills, the language of employability skills?
I would say that for Skills to Succeed, how I positioned, and Patricia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's transferable skills for employability. And so that's where employability skills kind of has just been picked up, but we are referring to transferable skills with that focus on being in a job, succeeding on a job, being promoted, starting your own business, increasing your income.
So the 5.
That's why employability skills is right.
Because those are our final outcomes.
Yeah.
Other programs may have additional final outcomes that they measure.
And maybe this is a good way to wrap up this discussion, because I see a stop sign.
Go ahead.
One of the things that the ASST working group is going to be focusing on and has already started doing is looking at developing a common approach for this. So really mapping out, now that we have this depth, now that we have this child trends research, now we've got these frameworks, let's come up with our Save the Children framework for transferable skills that hopefully can be used across all countries and all programs that allow for flexibility and contextualization, but also hit on what we see as very important, building off of this research, our experiences, and that's sort of where we're going to go next for this program.
Right. Because
for this developing the common approach, including things like how we train trainers and thinking about accreditation and what that could look like, or tools that could be used, and thinking about other components outside of just trainings, and gender-sensitive approaches, transformative approaches, resiliency, and bringing that into what our approach will be.
Especially for our target groups, which are deprived youth, right?
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for facilitating this. We have moved into the second session, so I'd like the financial capability people to please come forward. I want to welcome, so we have some new people in the room, and I'm wondering if you could just quickly identify yourselves and where you're from. And if any of you have not received the agenda, there should be extra ones on your table, otherwise let me know. So Suzanne, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Suzanne Berkey. I'm the Director of Food Security and Livelihoods here at SAVE.
Let's see, who else came in just recently?
Sarah?
Oh, Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Simons. I'm a livelihoods advisor here at Save the Children US.
Great, thanks. Anybody else new? No? Okay, great. I want to welcome Ronnie Deshpande, who will tell us all about financial capability at Save the Children.
Hi, everybody. So we are going to be focusing in on one particular component of that building block graphic that you saw earlier, which is financial capability. And let me introduce my esteemed panel. Julie Baika, you think you introduced yourself earlier, but you are the Technical Advisor for Youth in Action in Malawi. Did I get that correct?
For all the 5 countries where Youth in Action is, but based in Malawi.
Based in Malawi, yes. Patrick Mpale, who is the project director for our Aspire South Africa program. Andrea Lozano, who you've been introduced to already. And Courtney James, who is now the program manager for Potential, our program in Ethiopia, but formerly worked on Youth Save with me a couple of years ago. And I am Ronnie Deshpande. I'm the Director of Financial Services and Employment Programming here at Save the Children US. So with that, this is today's agenda. We're briefly going to go over what is financial capability. There's a lot of loosey-goosey throwing around of terms, as you know. And so we want to kind of get clear on what is our definition of financial capability. What do we mean when we say that? And why do we say financial capability and not financial education or financial literacy or anything else? Why is it important, and for adolescents in particular? And then we're going to go into a little bit of a deeper dive on how Save the Children has actually been building financial capability in practice through programs like the ones represented on the panel. We're going to go particularly deeply into an example from Youth in Action called Youth-Led Procurement, and I'll let Julie explain that. And that's going to be a precursor into a case exercise that we're going to have you all do, just to get a little taste of practicing, thinking about some of the factors that go into choosing the different elements of a financial capability program. So what is financial capability? So using the definition that was advanced a couple of years ago in a paper by some of our researchers on Youth Safe, so specifically Margaret Sheridan and Lissa Johnson. We define financial capability as a combination of financial literacy. So you can define that as the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that enable sound personal financial management, and financial tools, which give you the opportunity to actually practice and internalize those knowledge, skills, and attitudes and turn them effectively into behaviors. Resulting should be financial capability, which is the effective ability to manage one's personal finances and maximize security and achieve goals. So not just knowing how to do it, but actually being able to do it, which is a little bit of a different thing sometimes. So why do we include it in our adolescent livelihoods programming, in our youth livelihoods programming? Well, you know, the sort of the proximate cause is that we believe it's important to build sound financial habits. But you know, to the question that was asked about, well, what's the so what of that? Why are we doing that? Is because A, it can help build assets that can be useful for coping with emergencies, for taking advantage, especially of investment in oneself, which is critical for young people at this age, and at the same time, reinforcing some of those soft skills, some of those transferable skills, those habits of mind that are useful in other domains as well, such as self-control, such as advanced planning, and resulting in sometimes a positive self-concept. And then finally, there's been some research that has shown that building financial capability can also have concomitant impacts on health and education outcomes for young people as well. So there's kind of a direct path to better life outcomes through the actual savings that happen, but then also a beneficial impact through the employment or the workplace success pathway. That are two reasons that we would integrate financial capability into youth livelihoods programming. And the sort of, that in turn corresponds to an age-appropriate, I think, sequenced continuum of interventions that can begin with very young adolescents and then follow through right up to adulthood and beyond, late adolescence and beyond, starting with financial capability because it is appropriate for even the very young adolescent cohort. A lot of times sort of intuition will tell us, well, you have to have money to manage money, where in fact it can be the other way around as well. By the time you have money, if you haven't learned how to manage it, there are very small chances that you're going to be actually able to derive the maximum benefit from that income stream. And so that's another reason to start with financial capability early as a precursor to some of the more directly employment-oriented programming that can be more appropriate as young people reach, especially the kinds of ages at which they're qualified to do light and then heavy work in the countries in which we work. All right, so what are the different ways to build youth financial capability? There are lots of different sort of context-dependent ways in which we can do it. There's face-to-face mechanisms, community-based events, mass media, social media. I'm not gonna go too deeply into this right now because you're gonna hear about it through the project examples. And then in terms of financial tools, there's like a similarly varied menu of options, and we really have to be context-based when we select from this menu. Formal savings accounts, informal savings-only groups, informal savings and loan groups, and then various kinds of behavioral nudges that are not financial services or financial mechanisms in themselves, but can help people actually make effective use of the tools that may be at hand. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush ahead to make up for lost time and give more time to our program speakers and allow time for questions at the end. But how does Save the Children then build financial capability? So we have actually done it in a lot of different places. I think we have about 18 different countries up there in which that we've been able to sort of uncover. As you all know, that's sort of always an impartial, or an incomplete, I should say, exercise. But we've been able to count that we've already done it for almost 1 million individuals. So we have some basis of experience in this field. We are going to do a deep dive today on 4 of those programs, specifically Youth Save, Aspire South Africa, Youth in Action, and Skills to Succeed, to give you a sense of how these different programs in their different contexts have chosen from that menu of options on the financial education side and the financial tools side. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Courtney to talk about Youth Save.
Thank you. Youth Save was a consortium project led by Save the Children and funded by the MasterCard Foundation that developed and tested youth savings accounts in partnership with local banks and research institutions in Colombia, Ghana, Kenya, and Nepal. USAVE had two key program components: financial literacy interventions and the bank accounts, which were developed using findings from local market research with youth and key stakeholders in our countries. In Ghana, we also had an experimental impact study where we assessed the impact of savings accounts on 6,000 young people's well-being. Our financial literacy interventions were implemented in all countries except for Ghana, where we had the impact study, to avoid contamination. These interventions were youth and community oriented and were layered with multiple touch points. In Colombia and Nepal, financial education was primarily delivered in one-time workshops, mostly in schools. And in Colombia, we also delivered SMS messages with financial education and deposit reminders. And in Nepal, we also had a radio drama that was aired in more remote regions. In Kenya, we had a curriculum-based intervention with 10 to 14 sessions that were delivered through in and out of school youth clubs. We also included outreach to parents and communities. In Kenya, we had financial education and community buy-in sessions for adults. And in Nepal, we also had a street drama. Our bank accounts were developed in partnership with Save the Children and our local partner banks. And their aim was to develop youth-friendly, safe, and accessible bank accounts. The project provided subsidies to offset the costs of launching and designing the accounts, but we did not provide subsidies for ongoing costs in order to promote sustainability. Accounts were designed with no or low fees and included incentives such as piggy banks and t-shirts, and in some cases debit cards. In Kenya, we also developed youth club saving accounts. And to increase accessibility, our delivery strategies included taking banks to schools, where we would open accounts and, where possible, offer in-school deposit collection. An important component of the accounts was managing adult involvement. In most countries, the age of majority was 18, and an adult had to be the co-signer on the account. To mitigate potential risk associated with this, for example, an adult withdrawing their child's savings without their permission, in other countries we instituted certain mechanisms. For example, a child had to be present if a withdrawal was being made, or a child could choose another trusted adult other than a parent to sign up to the account. Overall, however, it was found that parental support was very important, and we found that where parents had co-signed on the account, youth actually had higher savings. So after 5 years, 150,000 youth had opened accounts in Colombia, Ghana, Kenya, and Nepal, and saved over $1 million. Most of these youth save participants had never had an account before. An analysis of 69,000 accounts showed that 44% of account holders were girls, and 48% of account holders lived on less than $2.50 a day. The number one reason for saving was for education, followed by emergencies. The impact study in Ghana demonstrated strong positive effects on financial capability and modest positive effects on educational and health indicators. I'll go into a little more depth on our financial education results. 44,000 youth were reached directly with financial education interventions. Our pre and post testing indicated statistically significant improvements in knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors up to 18 months after the interventions, including in participants' values related to saving, for example, that one should not save by skipping meals, in their attitudes towards banks, and knowledge about the more technical aspects of saving and budgeting, for example, what goes or does not belong in a budget, and also on interest rates. Youth in Colombia, Kenya, and Nepal reported opening savings accounts after financial education training. And in Kenya, there was a statistically significant number that said that they were saving after training. In terms of key learnings for future programs, analysis also suggested that longer training with smaller groups may be more effective in improving knowledge and attitudes. And in terms of girls, we found that girls may benefit from more intensive and face-to-face financial capability interventions, as in Colombia, girls benefited from longer trainings, and in Kenya and Nepal, girls needed more assistance with opening accounts. Overall, taking banks to youth was key to the project's success, as was increasing flexibility of account opening requirements and foundational support from schools and from parents.
Okay, thanks, Brittany. And I think what you have said is almost similar to what we're doing in South Africa. Just before, I've already introduced myself. My name is Patrick Mpale, and I'm the project director for Aspire South Africa. Really, what we are trying to do in South Africa, we're facing a unique challenge in terms of HIV infection, whereby girls between the ages of 14 to 17 and 18 to 24 are getting more infected compared to boys within that same age group. So then what we were trying to answer in this project is like, why is that happening? So we're doing two things. That's the core business of Aspire South Africa. First, we are trying to do then reverse the HIV infection in the country, particularly among that group. So we do HIV education training. But then we want to see if you combine HIV education prevention with what we call economic strengthening. And this talks about financial capability, it talks about employability skills, it talks about entrepreneurship skills, and it also talks about supporting the learners to access tertiary education. Whether that can have a noticeable impact, positive effect in terms of decreasing the number of infected girls. So that's the core business of what we are doing. But we are not directly working with the youth themselves. So what we are doing, we are actually building the capacity of what we call our implementing partners, which are based in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, and Gauteng. So we are building their capacity in order to be able to reach those young people to increase their skills. And we're also trying to build their capacity to also build the capacity of their NGO partners. So the other element of this project, like I said, is more of a pilot project. There's an element of research that is being led by FHI 360, which after 3 years of the existence of this project is going to see whether economic strengthening combined with HIV education can ultimately result in the reduction of HIV infection in the country.
I can fix it.
Yeah. So one of the economic strengthening intervention that we are providing to the youth through the IPs is financial capability. And our financial capability, we have developed this. This is a mental guide. It's called Impumelelo. And as Impumelelo is actually a Zulu word for success. And we call it, when we do the training of facilitators, it's kind of like a journey, that the young people should understand. So they start from point A up to point B. One of the things that we do in terms of the modules of the curriculum, we do, the first module deals with where young people come together, get to know each other, and then the outcome of that meeting is actually them establishing a club. And then they move on with their journey. So here in this is actually module 2, which has one session. Here we're looking at what is the difference between a short-term goal and a long-term goal. So we talk here about issues of if you want to plan for your education, for example, you want to save for your registration fee, that's a long-term goal compared to if you want to buy a cell phone or so. So that's what we do in that module. And then the other module that follows that, which also have about 2 sessions, is really now here, this is about savings, and here this is very important. This is when we are actually now looking at establishing, showing how to actually establish youth saving groups, which is very important. And this is really integrated with the entrepreneurship, because we want the youth who have established successful youth saving groups to eventually, establish income generation groups. which can then become entrepreneurship activities. Then they move on with their journey. This is a key one in terms of the tools. Now, this is where young people learn about savings, charge. And here we're talking about the issue of what are the bad habits for saving and what are the good habits for saving. And this is where we talk about bank accounts. Then the journey moves on. Here, this is now where we start teaching the youth about banking. So usually what we do here, we invite the bank representative, which then come to the sessions and talk to the youth about the products and the services that they actually give to young people. In other cases, we also organize a tour for the young people to actually go and visit the banks and interact with their bank representatives. We have had a challenge here in South Africa, particularly in terms of opening bank accounts, whereby, remember, our target group is 14 to 17 mostly, but the requirements for the banks in South Africa for the young people to open bank accounts is that they need to have an ID document. And most of the target group, of our target group, they don't have IDs. Oh, sorry, I see. Then the session that follows, session number 6, is here. This one, this module is targeted youth between 18 and 24. And here we start talking about borrowing wisely. We start teaching the youth about how to calculate interest rates. In South Africa, we've got the phenomenon of we call mashonisas. These are informal people who are lending money and they charge very, very high interest rates. So we look at that. And then the last part of the curriculum is when now we expect now the youth actually develop an action plan in terms of how they want to continue with what they do.
You want to just say one sentence about the financial tools?
Yeah, the financial tools. One of the key outcomes of this project, which our founder, the USID, has asked us was, once you find the training the young people to open bank accounts, so what? So they even want to know, in terms of that, to what an extent we should actually be reporting on the amount of money that has been saved. Which here in South Africa, I think I'll have to check to quote me how you've done it in Kenya and other countries, because in South Africa, because of issues of confidentiality, it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to be able to check how much those savings groups save.
And how do you decide whether to use a savings group or a bank account, or do you let the youth decide that?
Yeah, the youth decides, particularly the saving accounts. But the saving groups also, what we have found actually is that it is much easier for the youth to actually open saving groups account than the personal account. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've heard about one program that uses formal bank accounts, another program that uses both formal bank accounts and informal savings groups, but all savings up until now. Now we are going to pass it over to Julie to talk about Youth in Action, which uses another combination of financial, this is forward.
That was fast.
One more. There we go.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Julie, and I'll just start from where my colleagues that presented the previous session stopped. So again, when you look at Youth in Action, we're still doing financial literacy. Just to take you back to what Sarah Press presented in the morning. Part of our financial literacy is really embedded in the different kind of themes, the thematic areas that we're working on as Youth in Action. So again, when we work with young people, one of the things that we're doing is like to first understand as a young person, who are you? What kind of financial needs or financial challenges are you facing as an individual? But then we take it to the next step to also look at your family. What are some of the resources that your family has around finances? And then so you find, we create that space where young people are talking about themselves as individuals, but also they talk about their families. But at the same time, they get out of their family situation and look at their community. What exists within our community? Do we have banks? If we don't have banks, what are the other non-formal savings opportunities that are existing in our community? So again, that's how Youth in Action is doing it, but also the way we look at financial literacy, we've tried to include like livelihood opportunities. So we just don't stop on financial literacy, but also we link it to the different pathways. And I think Sarah talked about this also in the morning. Like for Youth in Action, we're looking at what are after they practice the learning phase, after we give them skills and knowledge around literacy and education, what do you want to practice at the end of the program? So you'll find that we still introduce in the beginning that if you're going to do vocational training, what does this mean for you? Which kind of skill sets do you need? And how are you going to practice this entire kind of knowledge and skills that you're really benefiting from the program? So I think that's the difference between Youth in Action, but also just to note, most of our curriculum was adapted from YouthSave. So again, we just had to build in the component of livelihoods within the Youth in Action curriculum. So the other option that I would really want to talk about is the Voluntary Saving and Loans Association, and I know most of you know about this. So again, in the 5 different countries where we're working within as Youth in Action, these countries have different contexts, and I'll just add to what Patrick just mentioned. All the regulations are really different. So you'll find that in Egypt, young people are not allowed to open up to start accessing loans till they get to 21 years. In Uganda, you can only save when you're 18 years. And then in Ethiopia, there's the microfinance institution that will allow you to, which is really regulated by the government, so you can't do so much. So again, you find that in most of our countries where we're doing this program, we've got to know that most young people, because it's a rural-based program, they're organizing themselves around voluntary saving and loans associations. So that also, the political, the social settings really kind of like help us understand which tools can we use. So again, that is one of the things that we learned.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to Skills to Succeed then. Okay. And you are going to talk about not actually a formal financial service in combination with the financial education, but something else. Exactly. So contrary to a little bit about what the other projects we're doing, which is mostly focused on access to financial tools, financial inclusion, this is more about Skills to Succeed is attempting to study nudges to save as a means to get you to save more frequently and to develop a savings habit. So let me start by the financial literacy. So Skills to Succeed is, as you heard earlier, is a youth employment program, but we are interested in exploring the connection between financial capability and employment. Ronnie hinted to that when her starting remarks about the connection between financial capability and employment could be in a more direct way. If youth save more, they have more monetary resource that they can rely on to look for work or to pay for further education or training. But also in the process of saving and in creating a savings habit, they also learn behaviors that we think are also related to employment outcomes, like self-control, planning skills, delayed gratification associated with the act of saving. So in Skills to Succeed, we are testing this. We actually do have a study in Vietnam now. It's a randomized control trial where we are evaluating whether if we add a financial capability component to Skills to Succeed, whether that will lead to improved employment outcomes. So in Vietnam, we're expanding this to Indonesia as well. We deliver a financial literacy component to some of our young people. We do deliver a basic financial training that covers some elements of this curriculum, like the role of money, how to make smart spending decisions, saving tips and saving strategies, and some knowledge of financial banking products that they have accessible in their locations. And creating a savings plan and creating a personal budget plan falls under the advanced financial training. We complement this
with Nudges to Save, which in this case in Vietnam we created through Facebook. We have a Facebook group that some of the participants were invited to join, where they can. The whole idea is to practice some of the financial skills that they were taught in the training, right? So in the social media group, in the Facebook group, we launch savings challenges. Youth are sign up to saving challenges. What this means is basically they say, I want to save so and so amount in a given time period, and if they achieve their goal, they receive social recognition in the group, but also at their school, and they receive prizes, and that they can pick up at the school as well. We also give them reminders to save, and basically the idea here is that we are using a lot of insights from behavioral economics on how if your savings goals are more closer to you, and they're more immediate, right? You are remembering them constantly, then you're more likely to save in the first place, right? So this Nudges to Save were developed through a very rich human-centered design market research that really influenced the way this Nudges to Save were designed in Vietnam. And we are actually with Jonathan here, and Jonathan and Jessica can speak more to that, and in the break if you want to talk to them. We are developing a smartphone app in Indonesia with precisely very similar context to this, but just focus more on girls, but also on this kind of savings plan, savings tracker.
Thank you. All right, so now you've heard about how 4 different programs sort of have chosen between the different possible items on the menu of the 2 elements. Julie is now going to take you through the example of the youth-led procurement mechanism in Youth in Action, which actually utilizes multiple ones of these menu options. Thank you.
So Youth in Action, like we're saying, is a livelihood program. But one of the things that we're doing as a program is we are providing a conditional transfer, a livelihood grant to rural youth in the 5 countries where we're working. So one of the biggest challenges the program had to face was how you're going to transfer this money. If with all the challenges everyone has been pointing out here, like I think in the morning session, we're like, oh, when it comes to Africa, when it comes to rural Africa, things are a bit different. Yes, they're a bit different and very different. So one of the things that the program team had to do was like, which kind of tools will we use to transfer all this money to the 40,000 young people we're trying to reach to start up their enterprise businesses? So when you look at some of the things that we had to do, the most important thing that the team had to do was to do a feasibility study. So again, different contexts. We all know what's happening in Egypt. We all know what's happening in Burkina Faso, isn't it? We all know what's in Malawi, Uganda, and those who don't know, I'll tell you about that when we have tea or coffee. But the political situation in the 5 countries we're working at really different. In Egypt, you can't just go on and you're like, okay, we are distributing money in such a way. So the different countries have to look at what are some of the appropriate methods of distributing cash. And when you talk about cash, the minimum cash we are giving young people to start up their enterprise is $100. So most of the parents spend like 7 months without even getting the $100. These are really poor communities. So you had to ask yourself, what is going to be the most appropriate way to transfer these funds? So some of the questions we're asking ourselves, we had to do, all these tools are really fully developed, and we can share with you if you really need them. So when we're doing the assessment, we had to ask ourselves that, is this mode of delivery politically right? Because we know that is very important in Africa where we're working. Socially, do parents and communities feel that it's okay for you to start distributing this money to young people using this mode of transport, this delivery mechanism? So again, those are some of the questions we're asking ourselves, but one of the things that that is so important to save the children is the safety, okay? So apart from asking ourselves around, okay, let's distribute all this money, child safeguarding policies are really critical to us. There are so many issues that had to come out, like, if you're going to do direct transfer of money, for example, in Egypt, we work with our partners to transfer the grants directly to young people. But we have to think about at what time are you doing this? Are young people safe as they're walking back home or to the markets to get to use this money? Again, if you look at Ethiopia, like I mentioned, they're using the ASST, which is the microfinance that's in Ethiopia. But the advantage with that was after delivering the money, they can use the same saving account to save the money that they make from their businesses. And when you look at Uganda had different systems. Mobile banking in Uganda is really picking up, and so many young people are really using their savings to buy mobile phones. So they're receiving their livelihood grants through mobile phones, but also we're trying to explore some of the things that we would want to learn. How do you save using your mobile phones? And then Burkina Faso is still using an MFI, like a microfinancial institution, but they're not able to save using that. So there are different things that we really had to look out for. And one of the other question that we had, what roles do the financial institutions or even the tools that we're using play? So for countries like Malawi that are using like the two methods, like using through banks and direct through banks, but also using mobile phones. We've had Airtel giving Malawi clients SIM cards. So they allow that for every young person who's coming in, we'll give them a SIM card so that they receive their money using that. But also I've already talked about Ethiopia, and then that has really disturbed me the 1 minute. But to really wrap it up, I think different financial institutions, when they come in, they're really playing different roles, and they're still talking about the different products they're having as banks. But also when it comes to rural communities, certain banks that are really formal won't do so much for our young people apart from really distributing money. And when it comes to direct transfer of money, again, we have to do so much as a program to introduce other methods of savings, for example, the BSLAs that I've just been talking about, so that young people have another tool or mechanism of saving. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about your last point? I think you have time. One more. Click one more. There you go.
So when you look at what type of education guidance is provided to the youth, I mean, this is something that Sarah, the tool Sarah that we were talking about in the morning. So when you look at the kind of work that we're doing, so in this program, we're looking at numeracy and literacy. Going back to the young people who are really participating in our program, their literacy levels were really so low, and some of them are really not at the same rate. So if you're really going to take them through a livelihood program, we thought that it's important to teach them how to read, but also count, because that is really feasible. And also, if Nikki could share with you when you have time, one of the results that we've seen, everyone reports that now I know how to read and I can write my name, which they feel like really that's one of the most important things they're taking away from Youth in Action. Like how much is really a livelihood program. Financial literacy, we've really talked about this. They do lots of budgeting. They do how do I manage my finances? How do I work with my family? So one of the reports, I think, from the study that I think it's you and Nick that you've just done is like the families feel like now they're learning from the young people, like how do you manage our own resources? Because they've been able to go through this. And then market assessment, knowledge and skills. This is really critical to us because if you're going to do a very successful livelihood program, it's very important to do those assessments. And when the program started, we had this national market assessment, but now we've taken them back to the youth themselves doing their community market assessment. Because the goods that they have at the national level are different from the goods that they have at the village level. So again, what we're doing is, how do we help young people themselves to do their own market assessment using the transferable skills that they're talking about. So again, before they receive the grants to go and start up before they receive the grants to go and start up their own businesses, developing a business plan is really crucial. So for us, one of the things that will help you get the funding is to have a very good business plan that you can show the mentor and even the facilitator and the different staff, so that you'll be past that, you know what? When you look at your business plan, you've thought about all these things, you've thought about the market, the seasonality changes, the cost, and all the things, and you feel like your business plan will be you'll be able to really put this in practice. So that's what happened.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so you have been on a whirlwind tour now of Save the Children's efforts in the area of financial capability. Now what we're going to do is give you a chance to apply some of these principles. So before we do that, though, are there any questions so far? Yes, Liz.
Mulu Chekhov from Save the Children in the U.S. And very interesting to hear that the similarities of approaches that are being used by the different programs. But what I've learned actually in this country is personal finance apparently is a required curriculum for kids to graduate from high school, at least in Virginia where I live. I realized state by state. So I was wondering, is there any way where these are actually how we are working with the formal education system to make it part of the curriculum? It relates to the idea of catching kids where they are young.
Yep.
So that's a question about how do we institutionalize this and not doing it project by project.
That's such a good question because it actually allows me to introduce another participant we have in the room who I've not been able to say hello to yet today. This is our colleague Yoon from Vietnam, and all of these programs are no more than we started Youth Save in 2010. But in Vietnam, they've actually been working on youth financial literacy since 2009. Okay, a little bit earlier than us, and have actually managed to institutionalize it at least at the level of the city of the Ho Chi Minh City government with 189 participating high schools, and are now working on institutionalizing it nationally. So Yoon, would you like to say just a few words about how you've done that? And this is a little plug. Yoon will actually be speaking at the Making Sense conference on this very subject. So do you want to just give a summary of how you've approached that?
Yes. Actually, in back to 2009, financial education is something very new to everyone. It's not only Save the Children. It's a really new term, and then we are encouraged to pilot a program for school setting for high school students from 16 to 18 years old. And actually at the time, Save the Children staff as us was struggling of what we should teach our young children about financial education. And then we had to file a lot of different document, curriculum all over the world. And because this this project is funded by City Foundation, so they suggest us to look at their own curriculum. However, we also try to adapt this to our local context and also our young people needs. And after several years, we make the financial education curriculum as a living document. We try to adapt and revise it years by year after getting feedback from the students themselves as well as the teacher who deliver all of the session. And I think that there are a lot of factors to help us to promote the financial education into school setting. First, we try to document it, to find evidence base, and also to use the social media channel to promote financial education. So it's a lot, and it even became a fashion style, and our program feature on television as well. So all of these things make the financial education become more familiar with everybody, even the parent, the community, and also social media. So we don't have to pay any penny, but they promote for us for free, and then because of that, and also all of the M&E efforts, we have a lot of data for pre and post-state produced every year. So we use all of these experience and data to advocate to Ho Chi Minh Department of Education and Training. And lucky for us that the leader of the department is very committed, and he really he changed himself in terms of the transferable skill for their for the student. So they think that besides the academic knowledge that their student need to be equipped with, they also need to be equipped with other skills. And financial education is something really needed and useful for their students. So that's why he decided to bring our financial education content to the system. And lucky for us that we have a subject for grade 10 students named technology, and in that subject they have open 6 sessions. That teacher can be flexible in terms of developing their own content, and then can get feedback from a student to deliver whatever they are interested in. So And our curriculum is also have 6 sessions. So it's like a very good opportunity for us to bring it in. And then after 4-year piloting in this university, we have them to develop the curriculum on the teaching aid, making it available both hard copy and also electronic copy, so they can disseminate to all of the teachers in 182 high school. And we also had them to develop a guidance on how to implement this. And after that, after we withdraw, they continue to implement and deliver financial education content for high school students. And until now, they even take it as one of the tests for a grade 10 student. And it can become like officer score.
So I think there's a lot of important themes there in terms of the institutionalization. There's time, there's awareness raising both with the public and with key leaders. There's sort of having curricular offerings that match the opportunity and integrating it so you're able to integrate it into an open space in the curriculum. And I think a lot of the countries in which we work also, there's been a lot of advocacy by other groups, child and youth finance, our own programs, that have resulted in things like national strategies on financial education that do provide these kinds of potential policy opportunities that we may be able to leverage. Did you want to add
I just wanted to say that in South Africa we have what is called a curriculum called life orientation, which really talks to life skills. We don't talk about transferable skills, we talk about life skills. And it's been a process to actually lobby the Department of Basic Education to include that as part of the curriculum for learners between grade 5 and up to grade 12. But the challenge is that we've got what we call school governing bodies. So these school governing bodies are the ones who determine whether this life skill orientation are actually delivered in the school. So it's the choice that the school governing bodies make. It's also about the language, for example, for instruction. So they, within the policy, the education policy, they have power to decide on those things. Early this year, we had a conference, I don't know if some of you were there, that was hosted by Aflotone. It's a financial literacy organization based in the Netherlands. And they are actually working also with the Department of Education to ensure that that life orientation curriculum also include financial capability. So it's a process that's going to need a lot of lobbying for it to realize.
And I'd say that there's a lot of momentum behind this. I mean, one of the things we found in Youth Save, for example, is that, much as the tangible, if you will, outcomes of the project were around accounts and savings, I would say that the financial education in terms of national stakeholders was one of the things that really garnered the most local interest and momentum around it. So there's certainly a lot of room for that, I think. Okay, if there are no other questions.
Can I ask just one little question? I saw a lot of mention in reference to the VSLAs, and there are a lot of really good VSLA methodologies developed already. Do we then apply those already really well tested and developed VSLA methodologies, or did you actually develop your own methodology?
No, we had to adapt. So again, what worked for most countries, like we had to adapt what's already existing in the communities, but also the already existing materials, but to what we're already doing as Youth in Action. So.
So there isn't, in your experience, there is a need to adapt these methodologies that are usually targeted at older people or grown-ups. So there is a need to target or to tailor it more.
Yes, it's very important to tailor that to the young people you're working with. It also depends if some groups are just single groups, then you have to do that because the adults also work in a different way. So we really had to work with different countries on that.
Patrick, do you want to talk about the TA that we got from Plan on VSLAs?
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing thing that we would like to introduce to our civic groups. So we are working with a lady called Stella, who's actually going to be introducing this concept. And really this for us is about the sustainability of the saving groups going forward. So it's an ongoing process that we are currently working with them. It's a new concept in South Africa, and are going to be learning about that very soon.
So Tessa, to answer your question, there has been an adaptation, a very extensive adaptation process of the standard BSLA methodology to young people, led by Plan, and they actually have an excellent technical resource, like a guidebook that they just put out that I encourage anybody who is thinking about this to refer to. Okay, I'm getting the stop sign, so I'm sorry, I know there are a couple more questions, but we'll have a chance to come back together and discuss a little bit more. But now what we are going to do is, and I think we can just stay in this room, we're going to break you guys up into 6 groups of 5-ish, because I think there are about 30 people here, at least where I counted before. And we're going to pass out these case studies. So we have case studies of new programs that are being designed in various countries around the world. There is the country of Edustan, there is the country of the Republic of Moldavia, and there is algebra, which is also a country in our fictional world, because it's all about the numbers. And these case studies give you a few facts about the context. And what we want you to do is tell us what recipe, what ingredients for the recipe for financial capability you would choose in each one of these contexts. So how would you ensure financial literacy, and what kinds of tools and mechanisms would you put in place to ensure that young people actually have the opportunity to practice those new knowledge, skills, and attitudes that they are going to be imbibing from the financial education that you'll be putting in place. So go ahead and put yourselves into groups, and then we will pass out the case studies. And we'll have, we'll have 20 minutes to do this, and we'll come back together at 12:30.
So one group would be here in group.
Yeah, future tables or what have you.
Which group are we
Actually, in this
There's a really interesting aspect because they censor
Did you guys get case studies?
Do you need more algebra? Do you need more algebra?
What is this third world thing? Cold War again.
And don't panic, I'm not.
So this is Uganda pretty much, isn't it? Youngest population. Come on, give away. This is Wikipedia's description of Uganda.
It's Asian, right? So there might be anything there.
I wanted to call now that everybody has case studies, I just wanted to call your attention to a few things. So there's a couple of key considerations that you'll want to take into account, right, as you're designing your financial capability program. So you want to look at some of the things that our presenters talked about. So what kind of financial infrastructure is there? So what do you have to use in terms of the formal financial system, or is that not an option? What's the mobile phone coverage, right? That opens up a potential different kind of delivery mechanism for your nudges or your financial services. What is your target group age, and what are their living arrangements? Are they mostly living with their parents, or not necessarily? That has an effect on what kinds of financial services they can access. And what is the relationship of the age and the living arrangements to the laws around account opening? So at what age can you open an account, and what other requirements might you have to fulfill? And then what other traditional informal means of money management or savings, is already part of the cultural habits that you might be able to build on? And then finally, what linkages to other programming do you have to try and leverage? So some things to take into account. So we'll come back together in 15 minutes.
No, I'm just here looking at it. Right.
Keep that.
And all the listen to all.
I think those
Tools and then nudging. I was.
Hold on.
Robel, how do you Well, it says the financial situations.
That was
Presence of financial considerations. I think that's one of those.
This is a financial contribution. It's limited.
They're an urban
Being voluntary.
No gender line.
Natalie, you heard? Interrupt. I want to do this.
It looks like a relationship these factors to
So, what?
program designers.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you didn't get. Oh man, you He created. What would you do differently? Right. No, 18. Antoine Jackson. This program targets 14 to 18.
I was piloted.
So they can access
Not
it.
there.
They can access the family member.
Okay, why don't we talk about so our target population is 18 to 18. Being clear and negotiate. Program design. Down adjusted. Yeah, okay, good. You guys go first.
Modality.
They can't. Yes. Why not? No. Because what type of context last year there was some that offers loans and size of everything is limited. That's why in looking at how to use something more like that.
Using the reformation of those groups and say
Agriculture, production and some petty trading. There is some side of if we're thinking about what's actually efficient. Okay, we have 10 minutes.
the bank account.
So 24 hours. For example, for this one, our education.
What do we think we have?
Also have to practice women, and we also have to think of the side of
Reestablishing that level of social trust is not something we can do in a short period of time.
why, how, because many of them are interrelated, and we want to verify the attendance to be like
I mean, I know it's not. Yeah, we were talking all.
They can have like a kind of called group chat.
Yeah.
To get to know them.
More money.
Yeah, whenever we're up again, we kind of. But there's different. So. And I do agree with that.
We need to talk about it.
They also engage in like a soccer. They can only like for the It's can be feasible because they can also but if we want them to develop some kind, for example, for Jane, and then also we want from low and for Jane for Jane I, and both names are.
I think because they can open accounts,
We can break it down into
so what do we need to have?
or you can like,
what are the key knowledge?
Yeah, that's what
the.
This is what they change it to.
What do we want to
I don't know, but I was thinking that maybe we can decide that these migrant populations are all culturally homogenous enough from the city, so the school club that you mentioned, I think is drawn from those rural areas, so like traditional dancing, music, and culture, and that way parents are more likely, or gatekeepers are more likely to support adolescents going to them if they feel that it's preserving their culture in the face of all of
It can be like a platform, meeting.
Sneak in. So now we do that.
The context we're talking about, the design is ready. Go for it.
Like knowing
until you're
that
18
part of
that you
it,
can't access the withdrawal, actually there you can't legally withdraw in.
What about, there is a question.
However, there's a period when you have to leave the state.
So type
This is legal, though.
Able to use that calculation some of the age don't have that. That's the rule.
Doesn't say legal guardian.
Focus on
Sorry, I know.
Oh, you're right. No, you're totally right. That's behavior.
Yeah, but you think.
You're right.
with the other sector like education, health,
I'm just trying to sell.
so it means not only provide opportunity to get a loan and then develop some kind of livelihood.
But you're right, like that.
So you would integrate
Behaviors would actually be
The other programs that were trainings from because achievement, because we are like a same achievement. Now we want to promote students' education program. But currently we already have we're working on health, education, and so we can develop a holistic program that, for example, when we mentioned about education, so we can promote from the young people, especially the women, to go to school, to improve their literacy level, and they will also provide them like financial education.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes, so
Maybe an
start getting down on paper the ingredients you put down for financial education and for your financial
Therefore,
tools.
related to that bank accounts, then understand the
Difference in the traditional savings structures. That's what they I do think the medical.
We will continue with that. Say that again. So are we continuing with that? Traditional savings? Strengthen the setting up or
managers, maybe around the
Actually, the microfinance institution, they also have the service of like giving it, not only giving loan. So if you work with a microfinance institution, you can develop please, and also the mobile cap and also giving out smaller one.
Smaller one?
Loan.
Yeah, I think the three tools are definitely the bank account, strengthening the traditional saving groups, and leveraging the microfinance.
Yeah, last one. Somebody from Tanzania said they're going to work with grandmothers because they have a lot of
There's also the What Are Your Three Centers for Community and Nutrition Services that's yet to be so I feel like that those workshops would
buy ingredients. So what sort of, how are you going to do the distribution and how are you going to do the financial support?
training workshops. That could almost be also a place on the librarian nudges, right? Like that kind of integrates those nudges into the entire experience of those youth centers.
So maybe doing like a matching reminders of the youth
reminders, yeah. Because I imagine it would be beyond like of course training on financial tools and education would be fantastic.
Also what interests
the center that promotes it generally.
Put in there, remind to the adolescents because it doesn't. But it can be back into there's a goal.
No, I think here, for women that work with venues,
You mean if there's $100?
so I think this question
Reality.
Okay, let's start wrapping up. We're going to come back together in 1 minute.
Because they'll have, it's about all about access to those things.
So
this is a government related to
But I mean, we have to be realistic that we're knowing that young women is our bringing in target and that generally only allowed to be home on the chest. Are they able to actually move from their home or family to the youth center?
Well, and again,
strategy,
making lots of
actions based girls who might be restricted to their home setting.
So, yes,
so imagine my work.
For savings and companies, I think that's one of the not considered in the planning.
A lot of assessments also
Can go out. So we would think
Could there almost be a way to work with like agricultural companies, so whether it's fertilizers to like and what about the mobile packaging?
Are we going to use that?
I think we can package.
I don't know.
I think we can start small.
Okay,
Just maybe a task.
let's wrap it up and come back together.
Start with
that would
this will complement the training. Right, so we would
Go get us your business. Presenting. Voluntold.
Okay.
Okay, let's come back together, please.
You know, it's interesting. But it's not. I don't see those in Russia. There's others.
No, basically not.
All right, come on, guys.
I'm not doing it.
Financial education. Not doing it. And now I'm that involved also. No more you the next week. We're not only targeted.
Okay, can I have this group come up to the center to present your design? We're all presenting. No,
Exactly. That's what I said. Ask me to be 3 members. That's fine.
All right. So,
we are going to start with the Republic of Algebra. And who had algebra? Raise your hands. I think there were a couple of groups that had algebra. You guys had algebra? You all had algebra? Right. Okay, there are two groups. So, key facts about algebra. One of the world's youngest populations, mostly dependent on agriculture. The target group is out-of-school youth, 14 to 18, in 3 hard-to-reach districts. Limited financial infrastructure. It takes like 4 hours one way to access these kinds of services, located only in district headquarters. It says one can only open up a savings account at age 18 and only access loans at 21 years. And the minimum charges for the account are quite high. The country has high mobile phone usage. And a recent redesign workshop has discovered local government extension workers that are providing technical support to farmers, MFIs providing credit to farmers, local business people trading in agricultural inputs and transporting them to the capital city, and local NGOs implementing financial education programs. So that's a little bit about the context. So in light of that context, Irene, how did you all in algebra design your financial capability program?
So we decided at the beginning that we were just going to implement it in action, but then we went a little bit farther. Yeah, so we discussed a lot about the financial literacy, financial education component, and how it's important to combine not only the literacy aspect, but also some of the social skills that are necessary to improve savings behavior, responsible savings behavior, this kind of thing. So we were discussing that approach that it's more integrated. So we differentiate 3 components, which is the knowledge, the attitude, and the behavior to link it to different activities, especially regarding financial inclusion. And some of the knowledge we identified, it's especially to link all these activities with local financial services that we have access to, policies, and the advocacy kind of idea, which is a lot of the times we leave it out. How to access budget, the value of savings, and especially responsible savings behavior. And then tracking, record keeping, and also like financial negotiation and targeting what exactly you want to spend the money on and why is it affordable. So because there's a lot of mobile-based access, so we were discussing the best approach to access, for example, banking accounts and also these through apps, phone apps. And also because they need to be 18 years old to open a bank account. We were discussing about the savings clubs of the VSLAs, among youth groups, and also we discussed a new idea, which is combining kind of crowdfunding community and micro projects. For example, in order to buy the phones, because that's what is in the case study. So linking that to this knowledge and this financial literacy kind of activity. So yeah, the crowdfunding activity is actually quite interesting because that gives them kind of entrepreneurship knowledge and also how to market their activities. And it brings also the community with them in order to kind of fundraising for their own activities.
Okay, good. Lots of creativity there. The second algebra group, how was your program designed, similar or different to this one?
It is pretty much, I think, similar. We did not break out the financial literacy and education into the 3 buckets of knowledge, attitude, and behavior. We just put, yes, we need financial education, but I think one thing that we probably different is that we want to target just not only the youth, but also other family members. And there was actually an interesting idea of grandmothers who don't have a stake like the parents, the immediate parents, but interest in making the young to save and be financially capable. So targeting, like packaging the education to target other household members like that. The other thing that we said, I think the same thing with VSLA as a tool because of the how far the formal infrastructure is. So we wanted to take the community-based approach, which is a VSLA. I think that's similar. We wanted to use mobile technology, but we say, well, we would start with probably text messaging, using mobile technology for basic stuff to send reminders before we get into mobile money. So, and also using the mobile too with social media We heard WhatsApp is very kind of popular in the LAC region, maybe Facebook in Africa, wherever the algebra country is. So using that to encourage the VSLA groups members to really share with each other. So that's what, yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Does anybody have any questions for algebra?
Becoming an expert here.
If not, we will now pass to the Republic of Mogovia. Who is presenting for Mogovia? Don't everybody get up at once.
We had two groups.
Just one group of Mogovia. Can you tell us a few things? I see you've written a few key points about Mogovia up there. If you want to just tell us a little bit about Mogovia and then why you designed the way you designed.
Don't know. You want to?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is the background of the young people in Mongolia. The majority of the population in the country of young people aged between 15 to 24 years old, and most of them live with their parents and also depend on their parents economically. And they have limited cell phone connectivity, especially in the rural areas. And there are several microfinance institutions offering loans and savings for only for adults that. And also among this group, especially young women, they have limited mobility, so they mostly help with families on in their homes. So this is the general background of the youth in this country, and so based on this, we think the type of financial education we can offer to this group of youth are formal and informal education, especially focusing on women, and also integrating with other, because it says that in the area, Save the Children has already implementing several programs and different themes, for example, education, health, and food safety. So we can have integration of this program with other programs, especially, for example, for the education one, it says that in the background that there's a kind of dropout rate in the basic education in schools because quite a lot of young people, they cannot afford for the exam fees. And so if we have this component, the financial education capacity component together with the basic education program, that with the saving that young people would be able to pay for the taxes, so they can go on with studies. And in terms of the financial tools, because there are in the country that the young people who are over 18 years, they are allowed to open bank accounts. So one of the financial tools we can provide is that to help these young people, support these young people who are over 18 years old to open their bank accounts. So then in the financial education component, we will need to help teach the youth or support the youth on the policies and the procedures of how they can get access to the formal banking services and accounts as well. And also, it also says in the background that actually the traditional saving groups were quite common in the area, but was affected by the conflicts of wars there. So another way of, in terms of the financial tools that we can help to strengthen their traditional saving groups, especially for the young people who are younger than 18 years, who cannot open officially their bank accounts. And also leverage the microfinance institutions to either provide more amount of loans to young people under 18 or help them to open up a saving account as well. And also in the country, the government has this priority of youth. Sorry. Through the investment in setting up the youth centers and also consider about the problems faced by the young women in this group, that we think that we can promote, one of the ways is to promote financial education together with the government initiative on the youth centers for training, and also to have like door-to-door mobilization of probably like peer-based group learning for the young girls. And also another important thing is to raise the awareness of more investment in young people.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive program design talk about. I mean, I think that raises a very important point. So this is a 15 to 24-year-old age group. It falls on both sides of the legal majority barrier, and so naturally they're going to have to be differentiated strategies. You guys took that to, I think, a very, very comprehensive degree, so congratulations. All right, so we have now 2 minutes for Edustan to tell us about their program design. So Edustan is a middle-income country, has very high levels of inequality, rapid urbanization. It's in these like new informal peri-urban settlements that the program is going on. It's a lot of casual day labor, petty trade. Few people make it to high school. Most youths are living with their parents. A lot of early motherhood. Uncommon government-provided social services, but a few local NGOs that work with this population, a very small number of bank branches, but a growing network of cash-in, cash-out agents, and one can obtain a mobile money account as well as a connected savings account at age 16 or before that with an adult. So there's your context. Take it away.
So in this context, we looked at, one of the key things was the fact that there was this sort of base of VSLAs and these things happening in the areas where a lot of this migrant community was coming from, but the biggest issue being lack of trust, social cohesion, things like that, being sort of newly mixed into this new area that we didn't want to sort of reinvent the wheel, but kind of take it as a base and work on doing something that would help to improve that social cohesion and community togetherness in order to be more effective programming. And so one way we looked at doing that was really the idea of those youth clubs, and thinking about two modalities where you had this in-school population and then a very large out-of-school population. So needing to make sure that that was being differentiated for having these sort of clubs, that whether it's an after-school club with a curriculum that links into that school curriculum, and then a separate sort of cultural groups, youth activities kinds of club that could get kids interested in coming and parents interested in their kids going outside for kids that aren't currently in school. And so with that, we really thought that using the VSLAs, adapting the VSLA approach that seemed to have been working previously in a lot of the more rural communities, to find a way to make that work for the youth in this now more rural context. And then again, the idea of attention with thinking about gender in this context, based on both looking at the issues of so many of the adolescent girls actually becoming pregnant during this time, as well as the fact that their employment opportunities were very different between the two genders, that we felt that more than likely having sort of youth groups that were focused on boys and other ones focused on girls would much more likely be successful in this context. And so it also would allow you to focus with employability skills, entrepreneurship skills, and things, really looking at what the options are for kids, both genders, sort of in this situation. With that, we looked at tools where we saw, again, using VSLAs as the approach, but there was this ability for kind of thinking of it with groups of VSLAs, but the idea that connecting to mobile banking and formal savings accounts was an option, especially starting at 16, where kids could access it. So we felt that we'd probably start focusing on a VSLA approach, but then as these groups are really formed and developed, that the kids would then have the option of deciding how they wanted to take it, if they wanted to transfer to formal savings accounts, to mobile banking, or if they wanted to maintain their youth VSLA program. And then the other part of this we saw nudges, again, the idea of the mobile coverage and taking advantage of the urban content, the urban setting here, of using sort of e-nudges and things like that, of mobile messaging and connecting with that, as well as we saw the service providers, that both within this program you want to make sure you're doing work addressing adolescent sexual and reproductive health and some of these other things, but so as part of with these youth groups, you're helping, encouraging, and linking kids to those services, but then connecting with those services to get the kids into these youth programs. So if the kid is going to a clinic or through the schools, these other ways that then they're getting referred to and encouraged to participate in the youth clubs as well. And so it's kind of these cross referrals and things as a way to encourage this messaging. And then as well, the idea of sort of that forming group solidarity and using these groups as a way that you're creating sort of that social network as well of getting kids to reinforcing these messages and encouraging the youth in that way, that so it becomes like a peer learning opportunity.
I may have missed this, but did you think about using the groups as a BCC or a learning delivery platform for the ARSH messaging as well?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that
We
was
imagine with these groups that you'd have sort of, it's not just fancy literacy education, but you're also looking at health messaging and sort of lots of other components that you could do as sort of these youth groups, and sort of lots of different ways that you could generate interest as well and kind of bring kids in for these different factors. And your the way the curriculum will be designed, you'd be covering a lot of these different issues, including gender sensitivity and some of these other factors as well.
Good. All right. Thanks so much. So that was very impressive. We didn't give you a lot of information to go on, but you guys were very creative in the kinds of programming ideas that you came up with. So we're gonna wrap it up now. I hope that
we have time for a few questions while they finish setting up the
wrap
lunch.
up.
No.
Okay, go ahead. So I think there were a few questions before. I don't know if people still have questions. Yeah.
No, when the last group presented about using this as a platform, I thought of integration, program integration, and how this approach, the transferable skills approach, can be used for integrated programs that have different elements. So I guess I was very interested in to hear more about that, but I think how can we kind of use that for integrated program?
I want to add on to what you said and respond a little bit, just to say that in Youth in Action we found that the financial component was a huge draw for youth and for their parents. Not just the money itself, which is an obvious draw, but learning about finances. Both youth and their families really appreciated that part of things, part of the curriculum, and I think it motivated, not only I think, but it was shown to motivate them to continue attending sessions. So incorporating a financial literacy component into any program could really promote attendance, retention, and so on.
And the funny thing, what we found in Youth Save is when you ask kids, what else do you want to learn about? It's adolescent reproductive and sexual health.
Yeah.
They seem to be sort of number one and number two, depending on the context.
Sex and money. Sex and money.
Survivors of all human behavior. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think, as we think about what is the common approach, or the common approach is going to look like, the theme of integration naturally suggests itself. And, this is something that we're working on now with the revamp of the sponsorship adolescent development module, working in very close collaboration with our colleagues. And then Sylvia, I don't know, do you want to say anything about the way that ASST and the position paper approaches integration with transferable skills at the base?
Yeah, I think the core of the reason why we wanted to call it transferable skills is this, that we wanted to be clear that these are skills that can be applicable in all these different aspects of the young people's lives, which reflect different sectors as well. So I think, again, we're going to elaborate on this in the common approach, but in the position paper we also highlight what are the areas and the reasons why we think cross-thematic work is important, and we provide specific examples of connections with adolescent sexual reproductive health, children and work as a protection issue, and education, given that we just said functional literacy and numeracy is really at the core of the foundation of our work in this area. So these linkages are there. We need to become better at finding platforms to really exploit them.
So speaking of resources, yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So given the fact that we earlier said that time is our biggest enemy, how do we do all that in a program? And money is limited. So how do we do that?
I think the issue is, to me the key word is synergies. We can't just add on pieces to pieces. We need to find, again, transferable skills, and as an example, when we are teaching a skill that we think can be applied to different aspects of their life, that's where we have to think about what are the key aspects that are necessary for that population in that context. If it is HIV and sexual reproductive health is really key, we want to exploit those two livelihoods and sexual reproductive health aspect. If it is protection in Latin America and maybe violence, we want to focus more on that. Or so it's not in every context everything needs to be looked at, but depending on the context, there are more clearer synergies that we can look at. But then the challenge remains of the time and money. So.
Okay, I just want to say that lunch is being served outside, so I am happy to stay and continue the discussion, but just to note that. So, Patrick,
I just wanted to respond. What one of our partners, who over the last 8 months or so has been experimenting with what we call youth camps. I think what they do get organized. They organize the youth to come to a camp from Friday to Sunday. But what they do, which is interesting, is not just they want to cover, let's say, module 1 and module 2, just about teaching, but they also intermingle, the teaching with activities, fun activities, team building activities. So what you are saying sometimes is that we're not doing the youth camps just to meet the targets, but the youth camps actually make sure that during because if you take financial capability, for example, 16 sessions, and we want those sessions to be delivered a week. But sometimes because of those challenges, so we need the youth camps. The youth camps might last for 6 months or so, where you cover at least 2 or 3 modules at the same time. So that's something that we are expanding to other IPs and seeing.
I have another follow-up.
Mine's a different topic, so I don't, if this is.
Can I just ask, because we got time, money, but then we also have scale, and we're getting pushed and pushed and pushed to reach thousands and thousands of young people within 2 or 3 years, or maybe 5 years if you're lucky enough. Food security program. That's the other what I see as a constraint in this, and I really welcome any ideas you guys have about how we can deal with all of these constraints and then pressures we're getting around the scale. So,
scale, I guess I don't want to get into a whole different discussion about scale and how we define a scale, whether it is institutionalizing it or say that you're reaching many kids. That aside, I think the integration part. We have to stop. Stop.
If people are hungry, yes.
Okay. But
you can finish.
No, I was going to say actually what Sylvia said. The way we see this, the way I see ASST as a common approach has suite of tools of stuff, that these things that we said we would do that could be picked where they're relevant and there is they would be used on other platforms, right? So other projects as relevant, which I think we tend sometimes refer to as smart integration, as opposed to just, and then just the common approach is not just to be taken as a one package to be delivered in every places, but there should be a flexibility of taking that one element, intervention, to be integrated in wherever it's relevant. That's how I kind of see.
All right, I'm going to give the last word to Suzanne.
And sorry, it's a little bit different, but it does speak a little bit to scalability in terms of, and I apologize if I missed it earlier, working with the financial institutions. I haven't heard it a lot, at least in this discussion, about how much are we working, how much support do they need in developing new products, working, because that is a way of scaling it up as well. So I don't know if there's time to discuss.
I don't know if you were here this morning when Deanna talked about 101 and 201. That's 201.
Okay.
All right, so just as you go to lunch, this is a list of resources that are available on OneNet around financial capability. There are market research protocols. There's a sample financial education curriculum that's sort of comprised of the greatest hits of like a dozen different Save the Children programs. There's tips on designing financial education for young people, best practices from our youth savings experience, a risk monitoring guide, and that's all on the financial capability OneNet page. All right, bon appetit.
Happy to make.